is nothing wrong with your television set. Do not attempt to adjust the picture. We are controlling transmission. If we wish to make it louder, we will bring up the volume. If we wish to make it softer, we will tune it to a whisper. We will control the horizontal. We will control the vertical. We can roll the image, make it flutter. We can change the focus to a soft blur, or sharpen it to crystal clarity. For the next hour, sit quietly and we will control all that you see and hear. We repeat, there is nothing wrong with your television set. You are about to participate in a great adventure. You are about to experience the awe and mystery which reaches from the inner mind to the outer limits.
Hey folks, Kilt-Man here. Kilt-Man, at your service. Coming to you from the Tartan Outer Limits. And yes, from the Outer Limits, or the Outer Hebrides, we are wearing the Spirit of Scotland, a perennial favourite of mine. You've seen it many times because I wear it a lot, that's why. Anyway, folks, why are we here today? Well, we're reaching out from the Outer Limits to discuss the great TV show that was 1960s, early 60s, only had 2 seasons. You had The Twilight Zone from Rod Serling, remember that? And they were like a half-hour show. The Outer Limits was like an hour-long show. And season 1 of which was absolutely renowned for being good, classic, properly well-written, well-scripted, very imaginative sci-fi. And The Outer Limits was a definite sci-fi show, whereas Twilight Zone would often encompass fantasy and horror. Now, horror might creep into a bit of Outer Limits as well. Some of the scenarios were quite nightmarish, but it was a profoundly science fiction show. Rod Serling, of course, created the Twilight Zone, and that ran for many, many years, many seasons. Outer Limits only had 2 seasons, and season 2 wasn't as good. The writing seemed to dip down. A lot of the in-house talent, there was a bit of infighting, and a lot of people left the show, so it wasn't quite as polished or as accomplished. But season 1, someone with big feet is coming down the stairs, just over there, and probably saying fee fi fo fum or something like that. But they won't smell any Englishman's blood in this house, that's for certain. Oh no. And it was created by a guy called Leslie Stevens, who had a lot of TV shows at the time, and he leapt into the bandwagon of great sci-fi. And a fella called Joseph Stefano was a producer and a screenwriter for the show. He wrote most of the episodes for season 1. Joseph Stefano was also the guy that adapted Robert Bloch's classic novel Psycho for Alfred Hitchcock and the film Psycho. So his credentials of suspense and tension were really impeccable as well. And that little voiceover you heard there was a fella called Vic Perrin, who did it for all the seasons intros, and all the episodes intros. And it was a great little, when I was a kid watching The Outer Limits, I'd seen Twilight Zone on TV, but there was something about The Outer Limits which really, I think it was a longer show, and they had more, seemingly a bit more money, so the effects seemed a bit better in it. The makeup effects, the visuals, it's a lot more to it, a lot more substance, I thought. So as a kid, I was always more of a fan of The Outer Limits. Anyway, what we're going to discuss is a mask inspired by an episode from The Outer Limits from season 1 called the sixth finger. And now, before I show you the mask, a resume of the scenario of the sixth finger. And I haven't even been drinking. Or have I? Oh yes, the Styx whiskey. Big bottle over there. But no, I'm drinking tea. So, and even though it was an American show, quite clearly an American show, the studio sets, the locations around California and Hollywood, so you knew this was an American show. But this episode was set in Wales, Welsh Wales, yes. The story centers around an American scientist who's moved there because he's guilt-ridden over having been, part of the creators of one of the biggest atomic bombs. So he's kind of like a bit upset about the devastation his inventions have created. So he retreats to Welsh Wales, a mining town, and he's created this sort of booth using sound waves, modified sound waves that can advance, a human being to further reaches of evolution. They don't travel anywhere, but he just manages to manipulate their genes, their cell structure, so that they have a little sojourn in the box, and with a little dial, they can go 10,000 or 20,000 years advanced in evolution, and then they emerge with this higher intellect and the next level of mankind. Only he uses this guy called Gwilym, and Gwilym is played by the wonderful David McCallum. David McCallum would go on to star in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. He was Ilya Kuryakin. He would also be in TV's The Invisible Man during the 70s, which is quite long running and quite successful. And you've seen him in many, many other things. He's in The Great Escape as well. He's an RAF pilot in the classic Great Escape movie. And so he's embittered. He doesn't get on with his fellow miners. He's always causing trouble with the bosses at the pit. And when we first meet him, he's just disgruntled, and he's had a bit of a set-to with someone. He's got a real chip on his shoulder. But the luscious Susan Hayward, and she is just unbelievably gorgeous in this. So sweet, so innocent, and yet so... yes. She's his kind of, I wouldn't say girlfriend, but she's definitely sort of smitten with him, and they've got a connection. Well, she is a sort of a maid, or a sort of like, she brings the groceries to this little estate, this country estate, where this scientist is working. So she talks him into going in there because maybe this guy can help you. He can maybe broaden your horizons, broaden your outlook on the world. Well, he certainly fucking broadens his bloody bonds, because when he convinces Gwilym to go into this booth, Gwilym returns successively with a bigger head. His head just gets enormous, and but so too does his arrogance and his sense of self-worth, and his bitterness towards the village manifest itself because he's got powers of telekinesis, and he wants to destroy the village. And he becomes a madman. He kills the actual maid in the house by stopping her heart because she's shocked at seeing him, and he just, power of the mind, he stops her heart, kills her, and then he begins to realise his full potential. He reads books in a second, great big vast tomes, just flicks through. All of a sudden he can play the piano rather brilliantly, because, I get on this, part of this evolutionary thing is that he grows a sixth finger on each hand. So he has, 12 fingers, great for playing, the piano, and so, but he does go on a bit of a rampage. Now, the script was altered because it's deemed too horrific at the time, too nasty, too, mean-spirited. He was going to go and destroy the town, and he did kill more people. But in this, after killing the maid, there's a kind of panic, and people in the village are beginning to doubt what's really going on up at the big house. So they go and tell, Sergeant Rex. Rex. Do you know what? I've known 2 Rexes in my life. Both of them were German Shepherd dogs. I've never known a human being called Rex. But anyway, so they go and tell Sergeant Rex, and he dispatches. Now, because apparently in Wales during the 1960s, it was rife with cops on motorbikes who had sidearms. Maybe the California Highway Patrol, but not in Wales, rural Wales. No, roaring around on motorbikes in 2s. And they both got revolvers. Not in the UK, not in Wales. But he uses powers, and he hurls one across, through the trees. And he's about to kill the other one, and then all of a sudden he has this pang of, not conscience. It's he's constantly evolving. So he begins to realise, no, hang on, I've now gone beyond the need for revenge. I don't need to do this anymore. So he goes back to the house, and he finds the luscious Susan Hayward there, and he says, I want to go further. I want to become a vortex of intelligence. So he goes back into the booth, and he tells her to push the lever, push it forward, don't push it backward, forward, and it'll propel him further into the evolutionary, timeline. And he's going to emerge as some, well, whatever, fucking head to be huge, and at this rate. But she doesn't. She pushes it backward. And he's seeing this kind of like thing. You see his face in the little window, and it's kind of like a time lapse. Small husky has arrived. This sort of time lapse thing as his head's getting bigger, smaller, bigger, smaller, bigger, smaller, and then finally she adjusts it, and he comes back to how he was when she first knew him as David McCallum. And he comes out, what have you done to me? And oh, thank you. And it all ends. He's discovered that, he don't really want to go that far into the future. There was always a point to these stories. Like, there was a twist of irony to The Twilight Zone. Kind of like, a bit of a comeuppance. You had to learn something at the end of it. And the same with Outer Limits. People discovered, an inner revelation. They discover something about themselves or about, the makeup of, humanity, despite what alien threat you were facing. And there are no aliens in this one. It's just a human who's been propelled to further reaches of, evolution. And so it's a curious one, because especially he's got the power of telekinesis, the power of telepathy. Why does he need her to push the lever? He could just fucking get in the box and use his mind to push the lever. And being telepathic, he should have known he couldn't trust her. So, it's not one of the best episodes, but it's one of the most famous ones because of the makeup design. And it was, John Chambers, I think it was. John Chambers did the makeup effects for Planet of the Apes. He was great at doing simians. And in fact, in this episode, there is an intelligent chimp, which is a man in an ape costume, which is doing all jobs around the laboratory, and it's very convincing. You can clearly see how he evolved that design for Planet of the Apes, and of course he then designed this thing, which I'm going to show you now. Now, I'm going to tell you right now that this is not an official Outer Limits mask. They did exist. And this guy from the Six Finger was definitely one of them. But they were made in very limited numbers. And I mean very, very limited numbers. And it was way back. If you could find one now, hey, good luck to you. You obviously used your enhanced, DNA and evolutionary, intelligence to find one. But, yeah, you ain't going to find one, I don't think. But, however, it's such an iconic look. When people think of the Outer Limits, they think of two creatures from it. Well, three. They think of the galaxy being from the premiere episode, the pilot episode, and they think of the Zanti Misfits, which were like these ant-like things, about that big, but with like human-style faces. Incredible effects, incredible visual. And this guy. Now, as I say, you can't get the official mask now, or, well, you'd have to search high and low and pay a lot of money for it. But that look has been copied, and copied well, and copied badly. And the version I'm going to show you is by a company called Bristol Novelties. And it's definitely, very definitely inspired by the look that David McCallum had in The Six Finger. I shall go get him. He's only here. Prepare yourselves for a rather large head. Ooh! Look at that. Now, this is the third and final stage of Gwilym's transformation. The first time you see him, he's got a big T-foul fod on him, and eyebrows are up here somewhere, and his hair's gone back. He's got little bushy sort of mad professor bits around above his ears, and then he goes on a bit more, and his head becomes even bigger, but a bit less hairy, and then he becomes this. Now, it's black and white, the show, so I'm not too sure what the skin colour should be. I know that the original masks were skin coloured, normal skin colour. This, I don't know if you can tell it, because this is at night time, and it's kind of hazy looking in here, but this is kind of like a grey sort of colour, and I think the reason why they've done that is because there are many publicity stills from this episode, or from the Outer Limits, and they always use him as a sort of a poster boy. And it is a kind of grey or sort of weird shiny blue sort of colour. And I think they've copied that, rather than use a flesh colour thing. Plus, they're not doing an official mask, are they? So they've got to be slightly different. And yet, that's uncannily like the face that he has. With all these weird... Yes, he's on a bottle at the moment. He's on the bottle. A bit like me. And he has that sort of weird, sort of droopy nose. Don't know if you can see there. Bit of a blobby nose. The little pursed, arrogant lips. I mean, the official masks, when they came out, well, I say official, but the well-renowned ones, have got the eyes in them. This has got no eyes in it, sadly. And I don't think the head is not quite, the cranium is not quite as big. No, how big do you want the bloody thing? The pointy ears are correct. These indentations, and I don't know if you can see around here, but it's a bit of like a sort of a butt cheek sort of crack going down there. So when you see it in the show, and the light is not picking it up here at all, but when you see it in the show, it's got a bit of an ass on the back of his head. And there is one on this, it's just he's not picking the line up too well. Now, another weird thing is that, having looked at the other masks, I didn't see any hints of... I don't know if you can see this speckly wartage round here, right? You see that? Now, there's no excuse for it in the episode itself. He doesn't get any sort of facial deformity. Fucking hell, look at that. How deformed do you want to get? You know what I mean? But it's no sort of like like warty acne or nothing like that. But if you look at it closely, the makeup on David McCallum, it gets all lumpy and flaky around his gob, probably because A, he's moving his lips and it's cracking it a bit. Plus, as the day's film is going on, he's getting a bit of stubble coming through, So it's beginning to warp the skin and possibly irritate it. So I think they've looked at the screenshots and they've just gone, well, hang on a minute, it's got all this weird Rice Krispie crap around the side of his gob. So they've mimicked it. Now, this music, by the way, Dominic Frontier did the soundtrack to all of the episodes from season 1. He didn't do season 2. He's one of the ones that fell out with the producers and jumped ship. But the music in The Sixth Finger was not original. It wasn't composed for that episode. Because basically, The Outer Limits, he would compose for like the first 12, maybe 14 episodes. And then they would reuse that music throughout the rest of the episodes. So what you're hearing right now is a hodgepodge of the music that does make up the episode, The Sixth Sense. There's a few other episodes, The Human Factor, Borderland, what's the other one there? No, I can't remember. But I've got that stuff. That stuff is playing now, which kind of evokes perfectly for you the mood of the sixth finger. And anyway, this is dead cheap, this mask. You're gonna go, well, I wouldn't pay fucking 10 pence for it. It looks ridiculous. Yeah, it does. But he's got these gorgeous Nosferatu ears. He's got them strange little face like that. And it's magnified. His arrogance is magnified by having this big bonce, this big baldy, noggin. Which, as I say in the show, it's definitely bigger, I would say. Now, the thing about this mask, I'm not going to put it on because I don't know if it's just the quality. It's quite thin latex. It does not hold its shape, and when you put it on, it's not built for a bloody human head. Well, a human head for maybe 50,000 years in the future, maybe, but this is not. You can't wear it. You can't see out the eye holes. I couldn't, and I've got a lot of masks, as you know, and most of them I can wear, quite happily. Don't have an issue with them. This, it was hopeless. Absolutely hopeless. Now, you can always modify a mask. You can put stuff inside, to pad it out, put a bit of sponge in there to get some shape to it. Well, yeah, you can. Well, but I'm not that bothered because I'm not going to wear it. I just want to have it on display. Now, let's get another angle on this. What you're seeing there is I put a cushion. There's a little cushion shoved up in there as well as this bottle. Because I want to try and padded out, because it does kind of flop. You know, this big brain box just kind of folds in on itself. But, you know, there's a way of getting that to look really good. There goes the husky again, creeping out of shot. And, you know, this didn't cost much. This cost me about 12, 14 quid, I think. Only as much as that. Bristol Novelties, and they're, you know, easily found on Amazon, you know, and they've got quite a good range of masks. But this is definitely inspired by the Six Finger. They can't say that it's that. If they call it big, I think it's a big alien head or something like that, or alien big head. But, you know, if you watch Outer Limits, then you know what they're copying here. And so the detailing on it is actually really good. It would be more convincing if it had the eyes in it, you know, it just would. And maybe, you know, you could always shade it in a bit more. But that's David McCallum from the Six Finger. It is, folks, it is, it's just not official. Let's have a little look around the back again, see if you can see that arse crack is just not showing up, is it? But trust me, it is there. There's a big arse crack there, down there. So yeah, folks, that's another little mask to add to the collection. You can get official Twilight Zone masks. I think there's only 3 of them. From the Creature on the Wing from Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. One of the Doctors from The Eye of the Beholder, where they're all ugly faces like that. And what's the other one? The Seer, which is like this sort of devilish creature. And they've done them in, they're black and white, so they're kind of like grey, black and white and shaded. So they're not colourful masks to evoke what you saw on the screen, which I think is a nice touch, you know. And with this, I would definitely adhere to the fact that they've copied the sort of publicity shots of David McCallum, where they literally probably hand painted the colours or just changed the colour scheme on the photo itself and come up with this, thinking that that's how it looks. Or again, because so they're not infringing any copyright, they're making enough difference to, you know, get away with it. One big difference is the fucking stamp here, made in China. Yeah. But for your money, since you can't find one of these masks, the official ones, I mean, I know there's guys out there, and you know, there's some great mask reviewers on YouTube, and you know, you guys, I love you, hats off to you, because you've done this for years, and you've managed to find some real gems. But you know, sadly, dickhead over there hasn't got the fundage, you know, all the time to go and stalk the world finding these original masks. So I just get, hey, what's available? And to be honest with you, I like this quite a lot, this mask. It's kind of goofy, but then again, you want to see the show. I mean, oh my god, you know, he might be a poster boy, but he looks absolutely ridiculous. You know, I've heard of having a big head and an inflated ego, because I'm often accused of having those things. But look at that! Look at that monstrosity! Yeah. Yeah, let's have a little trip around the back end. Oh, you can just about see a dimple, can't you? But trust me, it does run all the way down. I don't know why it's not picking it up. But it's a proper pair of arse cheeks. Oh, no offence, mate, no offence. But it's weird sort of droopy nose on it, mate. You know? Kind of crazy. And his little puckered lips. But Susan Hayward in it. Oh, sweet Jesus. She is absolutely delectable. So there he is. There he is. There's, well, a cheapo version of Gwillem. You know, the man with 6 fingers. 6 fingers on each hand. Not with 12 fingers. 12 fingers. And he's a right arrogant bastard as well, like, you know. But David McCallum is a good actor, and the way he portrays, I mean, his Welsh accent isn't particularly great. And you have another guy in it as well, who's meant to be like a coal miner, and he's playing a guitar or a banjo, I can't quite remember, or a fiddle or something, and he's excuse me a minute, he's just completely covered in like grease and soot and coal, and well, he looks a bit like Al Jolson, put it that way. It's a bit too comical, but anyway, and the accents are all over the show. I mean, they've obviously got the maid who he kills by stopping her heart. She's like clearly from like Yorkshire, which is nowhere near Wales. But hey, you know, it is what it is. And the cops with the guns, where did he get that idea from? You know? It does also evoke some of the old Universal horror movies, because the great classic 1941, The Wolfman, you know, which is one of my all-time favourite movies, is set in Wales. But it is kind of like a fairy tale Wales. You've got lovely blazing Californian sunshine. You've got automobiles rocketing around the streets. And yet you've got gypsies on these old wagons, you know. Very quaint and like little antique shops. Very strange, sort of quasi-fable-like environment. Listen to this, it's getting away. Whoa. Oh, and then it stops. And here is the end credits from Outer Limits. This is like returning you back to your TV. Your TV screen is now yours again. You can control that volume. You can control the horizontal. You can control the bit. You can control the husky lurking behind you. Well, maybe you can, because I can't. I know that for a fact. That's the husky having a drink of water. Which reminds me, I must wet my whistle again. So folks, that was a little whistle-stop tour of The Outer Limits. And one particular classic episode. As I say, it's not the best, but it is highly regarded, but it's got a few errors in it. They did change the script considerably from the more hard-hitting and more, I don't know, nasty, mean-spirited version that it was originally going to be. There would have been more deaths. So they kind of watered it down a bit. Right, let's just stop that now, because it's going to start all over again. No, in fact, no. Look to this. I like this bit. It's kind of eerie, you know? Scene setting, but lovely at the same time. So, folks, The Outer Limits, definitely worth looking at. Season 2 isn't as great, but it's still got some gems in there. I mean, the progenitor for the Terminator, the demon with the glass hand, is in season 2 of The Outer Limits. So yeah, and of course, James Cameron had to settle out of court because he was accused of ripping off, is it Harlan Ellison's original short story, The Demon with the Glass Hand, and The Soldier of the Future, or something like that. There was two short stories which transferred to The Outer Limits, and both of them put together pretty much make up The Terminator, the whole story of The Terminator. And James Cameron did get accused of ripping it off, so settled out of court for a rather large sum of money. And anyway, you know, history is nothing if not copying itself and repeating itself. If someone didn't have a great idea to begin with, you wouldn't have great ideas to follow on, would you? Exactly. I rest my case. So, without further ado, I will say, be careful out there. You know, watch out for big heads. I mean, other big heads, the Mekon, yeah, the man from Planet X looked a bit similar to that as well. That was a little black and white, not very good sci-fi. Wasn't it? Oh God, wasn't an animated one recently? Megamind had a great big fucking head like that. So anyway, the history of big heads and slurpy dogs is ongoing. So I'm going to bid you all farewell and sleep well. Keep it Celtic, and just have fun. Y'all be safe out there. Be happy. Have fun. Buy masks. Drink whiskey. Make love. So whatever you want to make love to, but just make love, not war. So I'm going to see y'all. You now control YouTube again, not me. Bye.